The simple fix to Social Security that no one else is talking about, except your old buddy Josh, because that's what I do. I talk about what other people don't talk about. I think there's actually one guy who's made a proposal in Congress along these lines. I think there's one guy. I can't remember who it is, and frankly, I don't recall for sure if it's the same thing I share with you here today, but I think there's one guy who's made a similar type of proposal, but it hasn't obviously didn't take off. Anyway, I found this website today. I just been looking at all these websites, and this is called the Tax Policy Center, and it's just, dude, there's so much stuff. It's like waking up for Christmas morning, man. So much stuff in here. Just I love it. It's not gonna lie to you. Returns of itemizers by marital status. So check this out. We got how many returns are there? 15 million returns. All right, 15 million returns. How many total returns are there? That's where itemized. 15 million itemizations in tax returns. There's over 162 million returns. Less than 10% itemized. So if you're giving charitable money away, I guarantee the vast majority of you are not itemizing. If you have a mortgage interest, I guarantee the vast majority of you are not itemizing. So to have all this stuff saved for itemization when you don't itemize doesn't make any sense. Or to say, someone just busted on it. I can take my mortgage interest. People say all the time, well, your mortgage interest is cheap because you get to deduct it. Now, less than 10% of the people are actually deducting anything. That's what that said right there. The amount of people itemizing is 14.8242 million returns. And again, just a family returns over 162 million. Just keep that in mind. All right. So I came across this here today on this website. It's just freaking, I love it. So much stuff here. We're going to go over here to capital gain income. Everybody okay? And make this bigger because this right here, I'm just like, oh man, it's like, it's fun. I love it. Can I make this guy bigger? Hold on. Bang tight. Much bigger so I can bust up my glasses. So this is capital gain income for 2021. 2021 right here. Individual income tax. All returns capital income and the size of by size of adjusted gross income. All right, so here's our capital gain distributions. All right, taxable net gain. All right, taxable net gain. And this is in thousands of dollars. So we had $2 trillion of net taxable gain in 2020, 2021 for capital gains. $2 trillion. Capital gain income represents about 10% of our total GDP, if you can believe that. It's nuts. But check this. Man, your breath still stinks, baby. Oh, I love you, but man, that's bad. So of the people making more than 5 million AGI, what's that? There's about 500 tax returns of people making more than 5 million AGI. Of the $2 trillion in capital gains, these guys had 850 plus 175. 850 plus 175. They had 50%. So these 500 families had 50% of the $2 trillion in capital gains. So if we're just going to say, they all pay 20% in capital gain tax, just for simplicity. I'm not talking NIIT. I get NIIT exists too. But we're just using capital gain. So we're going to say $1 trillion and 100. It's a billion. I'll just do it like this times 0.2. They paid $200 billion in capital gain tax. 200, and I'm just using long-term capital gain. All right, $200 billion. They made $1 trillion. They paid $200 billion. Thus, they walked away with $800 billion of long-term capital gain profits after taxes. So what if we said we tax them at ordinary income as opposed to long-term capital gains? All right, so what would be? They would have paid, instead of $200 billion, they would have paid $350 billion. That's $150 billion more that we could be used to go to Social Security. Now, this is not going to happen every year. In fact, there's a chart in here. I mean, that's just the top 500 taxpayers, by the way. They're still walking away with $650 billion of profits. And that's what I've always said. I always said, look, I would tax people making more than $1 million of income. Instead of QDI and long-term capital gains, I would tax them at ordinary income rates. And so if we go down to 1 million or more, you can see it's another 100. I'm not going to be able to do this off the top of my head. It's 1 trillion, let's say 1.3 trillion, 1.4 trillion, 1.4 trillion of the $2 trillion of capital gains. 1.4 trillion goes to people making over $1 million. I just think it's easy to say right here. If you made more than $5 million of long-term capital gain, you're probably a hedge fund manager, frankly. or I don't know what else, but you're still walking away with a boatload of money. All right, so anyway, so I said, what if we just tax everybody at, over $1 million of long-term of ordinary income tax as opposed to long-term capital gain? Well, we just raised right there, what did I say, $135 billion. Oh, but and then we can give no tax, because we're going to say, oh, but how are we going to pay for your tax cuts? Because I advocate Trump taxes not on Social Security. I think that's 100% right. Right now, we're only paying, what I say, $50 billion into tax on Social Security. There's another, I can't remember, 50 or 60 billion. I don't think it's that much. Let's just say $50 billion going to Part A, FICA, or the Medicare stuff too. But for Social Security, the taxes on your Social Security, only like $50 billion is going to that. So we could easily say to these 500 households, hey, man, you're going to pay more. You're still going to walk with a crap load of money. And it won't be every year. I completely grant you. But you're still going to walk with a crap load of money. You're going to pay ordinary income tax because your income is over $5 million. Yeah, you're going to be just fine because you're a hedge fund manager, essentially. You're just pushing papers. All right, so now check this out. Now we go back to here, and I'm going to show you because it's not like that every year. We're going to go to historic. I wanted to go to historical. I think it was right here. Historical source of income and tax. Let's take a look. It only goes back to 2020, but here's right here: qualified dividends and net capital gains. So we're going to go to these graphs right here. And in 2020, we had net capital gains of 1.2 trillion, 1.1 trillion, and qualified dividends of 260 trillion. So again, if we did say in 2020, would that be about? We'll just say 1.3 trillion dollars. Actually, 1300000. And that times that by 0.35 times by 0.35, that would have raised $455 billion of revenue. And if we do 3 trillion or something like that, we just do it times 0.2, that would have raised an extra almost $200 billion that you could use to finance Social Security, get rid of taxes for just everybody else. You see what I'm saying? And including these guys, they don't have to pay tax on Social Security. And I'm telling you, man, that's what you do right there. Easy pie, done and done. You don't have to raise the cap. Remember, the stupid people say, we got to raise the cap. You're hurting small business owners, man. If you want to raise it, like even Biden, I agree with Biden. Said we're not going to raise the cap on anybody making less than $400,000. I would say $1 million. They raise the cap. So if you want to do that, and I don't think you should, but raise it because I don't think you should because it's not fair to say we're going to raise the cap and not give you a higher benefit. If you want to raise the cap, make it on people making over $1 million because the entrepreneur, small business owners are the ones that, with me, I get hit by that on both sides. I mean, it must be nice you're making that kind of money. Yeah, and that sucks to pay 7.65, 15.3. Sucks. That's a big tax hit to anybody making over 160. That's a big tax hit, big tax hike. And a lot of these people employ people, they're entrepreneurs, small business owners. That's not the way to do it. We want less corporatism and more entrepreneurship, small business people, if that makes sense. More capitalism, less corporatism. Anyway, so check this out, though. I just want to show you something else. We'll say raising the taxes on capital gains will hurt economic growth and investment. We're just going to have to look from so you see this is the effective taxes on capital gains, 14.1, this is in the 50s, 14.8, 14.5, 13. The maximum tax on long-term capital gain is 25%. All right. So now we're going to go to 1982 when the economic boom started. Maximum tax rate is 20%, which is lower than it was before. But the effective tax rate is 15, 16, 22, 23. All right. No one's going to sit there and say the 1982 to 1999 economic was a boom. No one's going to argue that. And yet the effective tax rate on capital gain was 22% in 1987. Whereas before it was 14% in 1954. Even though the tax rate was pretty doggone close, it was actually a little bit lower, right? 20% right there. It did go up to 28. But the marginal tax rate isn't the issue, it's the effective tax rate, Frank. I mean, marginal tax means something, don't get me wrong. But look, even 22%, 23 under George Bush, 23, 24, 23, and under Clinton, 24, 20, that did not hurt economic growth or investment into the economy. It just didn't. In fact, you can see the this is right here. Amount of total realized capital gains, it kept going up each and every year. 122, 140, 327, 148. This is when they get the Tax Reform Act in 1986, where they said people started selling because they needed to. They said, oh man, better. 148, 164, 154, 153. So it's going down right there. But the effective tax rate is higher. Why was it going down? Because the individual tax rate went up. That still didn't solve economic problems. The economy was still booming back then. I mean, it just was. So we had high tax rate. Oh, now it's going from 111, 126, 152, 180, 260, 364, 455. You know, the effective tax rate was still above 20%, significantly higher than it was back in the 1950s, even though the tax rate was higher. And here you got 1999 and 2000, 2020, tax rate is 21.19. You see what I'm saying? So now you go down to here to 2000, the aughts, the tax rates are going down. The effective tax rate is going down too. But look at this. You see, I mean, we then right here, 2007 went to 2008, 2009. Yeah, just the idea that the increasing the marginal tax rate and the effective tax rate inherently stifle economic growth and incentive to save and whatnot. It's just the evidence isn't there. It's just not. I'm sorry. Anyway, I find that very interesting. So let's check this out. Get to tickle that like button, by the way. I can't find the graph I was looking for, but there's a graph that showed you the effective. Actually, I can't remember what that was. Where was that? I'm not going to find it. Let's see here. What's this? Geographic translation. That's tax on Social Security. That's Social Security again. This is I don't know where it's at. Anyway, can't find it, but be that as it may. So there's a geographic thing about how much capital gains has kind of gone up and down depending. Well, I just kind of showed you. Each year it's a little bit different from the previous year. So you can't say we're going to get $150 billion every single year extra because we raise the taxes on long-term capital gains, the tax rates for people making more than $5 and $10 million bucks. But I can't say that. But that's a lot of money that can go to Social Security coffers for sure. And I hate to say it, man. A lot of these guys, we've made it very, very profitable to be in the upper elite in America. And we're not saying you can't make profits, not saying you can't make money. We're just saying, hey, at some point you've made so much that you're going to have to pay a higher tax rate on capital gains and dividends. That's just why I see it. I've said that for years, dude. And that's right there. And no one else is talking about it. I can't remember, Bernie Sanders or something like that. No one else talking about it. I would use this money to fund Social Security, 100%, to give people a raise, to make us fully solvent, to get rid of taxes on it. By the way, I was looking to, it's like, okay, so even back in the 80s, very few people had mutual funds at the beginning of the 80s. Very few people had individual stocks, and yet the stock market took off. Kind of crazy. How did that work when very, very few people, when I say very few, like 0.25% of the population? Because 1982 is when everything changed. That's when everything changed. And that's when we had this massive capital appreciation economy as opposed to what was before, basically labor-intensive economy, oil and gas refineries and manufacturing. It went from that to tech, insurance, and finance. We changed over from the old ways to this new ways of tech, finance, and insurance. And it's, some people just got rich beyond their wildest dreams. And nothing wrong with that, but it's okay for those 500 people to pay a little bit more. All right, I don't think they're going to be sitting in the popper line. I don't think they're going to hurt in hiring people to do their freaking website development, whatever that is. Love your thoughts. God bless.